It's the character at the center of every story and every game in the Silent Hill universe, and it's the one that shares its name with the title. The town of Silent Hill is arguably more important to the series than any of the individual characters who enter it. The town has its own mind, its own history, that explains how and why the various stories of the game turn out the way they do. Today, we'll begin to explore the character of Silent Hill by starting with its long, complex history. The timeline of the series begins in the 1600s. British colonists arrive from Europe and drive out or kill the natives who were living in the area. The game describes the area of Silent Hill as a holy place to the natives, where they perform certain rituals. This bothers me a little, just because a lot of American horror stories jump to the native burial ground or Indian curse as a vague excuse for what's happening. My theory is that it's not the natives or their rituals that are the origin for the town's power, but the place itself, which the natives recognized as being powerful. In the 1600s, the town is founded, and for 100 years we know little of the area's history. We do know that in 1692, Jennifer Carroll is burned at the stake as a witch. Only 8 years later, a mysterious plague spreads and drives off all the locals, and the area is abandoned. Jennifer Carroll is a character who is mentioned a few times as a founding member of the Order. The thing is, there's no way she could be a member of the Order. How could a person from over 100 years prior, in an area devoid of people, found a cult in that area? For that to work, people would have had to still be living there, spreading the cult's practices, but they weren't. Instead, it's far more likely that Jennifer Carroll was an innocent person unrelated to the cult. But when the cultists arrived and heard her story, it was convenient to claim her as one of their own to garner sympathy for their cause. The cult likely came to the area with the second group of colonists who arrived in 1810. It's around this time that Brookhaven Hospital and the prison are both founded. Let's take a moment to talk about where Silent Hill is. There's been a lot of conversation about it, but in recent years it's been decided the town is in Maine. There's a few things about American history that make that location seem slightly off. Specifically, Brookhaven Hospital and what would become Toluca Prison. Both are described as originally being built for the Civil War, one as a field hospital and the other as a POW camp. This is a map of the battles of the Civil War. Maine is at the top of the northern states, and it never saw the front line of the war. It also didn't have any major POW camps. These are shown on this map here. There's just no way that any soldiers, whether they were looking for medical attention or being imprisoned, would have been marched from the front lines all the way back to Maine. I prefer the idea that the town is in Virginia, which was made popular by the film. Virginia was not only in the thick of the Civil War, it was also the first state. It has a great deal of history, and its mountainous region is the perfect setting for a haunted mining town. Back to our timeline. In 1816, the Gillespie Coal and Iron Company is founded. The name of the company is conspicuously the same as Alessa and her family. There's no doubt the correlation was intended, and it says a lot about the history of the town. Alessa's family must have been powerful, with a great deal of money, which also explains why they and the cult were able to easily infiltrate seats of power. The Gillespie Company works through the 1860s on digging out the Devil's Pit mines. In 1863, Chinese immigrant miners discover an area of the mines that they name Diu's Tusk Cavern. The name Diu comes from Chinese mythology, the name of hell, where the dead reside. Diu is an underground maze, which is easy to compare to the Devil's Pit's dark corridors. Mining continues until 1911, when the Superstition Caverns are uncovered. This cavern was apparently found covered in strange, supernatural markings, and soon after there were many fatal accidents and disappearances in the mines. This vein of the mines was closed soon after. This history, introduced in Silent Hill Downpour, adds a lot to the larger mythos of the town. This deep chasm offers us something nothing else in the games has: a possible origin point for all the power in the town. It is also possible that the Gillespie Company might have gone purposefully looking for this power, for the cult, in order to claim it for themselves and strengthen their magic. The town's history is pretty tame until the 1900s, and it's in the 1900s this cavern is unearthed. In the following decades, the deaths and disappearances will skyrocket. The area of Silent Hill might have been a door, a liminal place with some power, which was amplified when the humans dug deep and opened the door wider. But not all things that happen in the town are due to the town itself. The cult is, after all, working for its own agenda. But how do we tell which actions are the town's magic and which are due to the Order? If we examine what each group wants, it's pretty easy to tell. The Order wants to control Silent Hill. They want to keep outsiders out, and they want to convert everyone to their faith. In 1939, the town becomes a tourist attraction. At the same time, there are a series of boat accidents that lead the town to have a horrible reputation for tourism. The Order doesn't want outsiders coming in and snooping around. Creating a horrible reputation for tourism suits their purposes. In the years between 1950 and 1965, the mayor of Silent Hill dies a sudden death, as do all the staff members of a local development group. This is undoubtedly the Order as well. They don't want Silent Hill to be modernized or developed further. That would expose them to greater scrutiny and weaken their power. They also want to control the government. Both these actions suit them perfectly. But there are other incidents that are probably the doing of the town. In 1918, the little Baroness sets out on Toluca Lake and never returns. 14 people disappear on board. In the Silent Hill arcade game, it's revealed that a young girl was killed on board. Her own mother pushed her over and let her drown. It is only after that action that the ship disappears. This is obviously the town's doing. Once the mother committed this crime, it took the Baroness in order to ensure she suffered for what she'd done. This is the history that builds up to the beginning of the game series. But while it gives us some context, it doesn't really explain why any of this is happening. Why does Silent Hill have power? Why do strange things happen here? One detail that stands out is the name of the dark side of the town: the Otherworld. The idea of another world that exists beside ours exists in many mythologies. But it is specifically the Celtic Otherworld which perfectly matches Silent Hill. In Celtic mythology, the Otherworld is the home of the Fae, the fairy folk. It is a place outside of time, where there is no hunger or death, the origin of all magic and myth, and home to the gods. It is also called Tir na Nog, the land of the young. Celtic myth is full of stories of the Otherworld. It is a place heroes can travel to, often by accident, by simply slipping through a gap into the Fae realm. One famous story is the tale of Oisin and Niamh, an Irish poet and the fairy woman he fell in love with. She took him to the Otherworld, where they lived in peace for 300 years. But when Oisin wanted to return to see Ireland once again, he made a mistake and became old, withered, and trapped in the real world. There were plenty of places in the world said to be connections to the Otherworld, such as fairy mounds or burial grounds. Often, you would be able to tell when you crossed over, due to the sudden appearance of an unearthly and magical fog. The Otherworld of Silent Hill and the one in Celtic myth have a lot in common. If the place of silent spirits was a place of magic, one of those on the border of worlds where you could cross to the other side, then perhaps this explains why there is so much power in the area, and why at times characters slip from a seemingly normal world into the Otherworld. Of course, Silent Hill's otherworld isn't a pleasant or friendly place. But then why would it be? The first major point of its history is the mass killing and evacuation of the natives that lived there. The people responsible are eventually all killed by a plague or vanish. This group is likely the town's first target. The town is a place of silent spirits, a place that gives voice to the silent, those victims who receive no justice, the crimes that go unpunished. Ultimately, it is a place of power that gives that power to those who were wronged.